Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just broke down Game 5s from last night. We are going to break down Game 6s in just a second. That is Game 6s for all the major Game 6s that are going to be taking place. We have two of the three Game 6s happening tonight, that being between the the Knicks and 76ers, and the Bucks and Pacers will be playing tonight. We could have that matchup set. And then the Cavs and Magic will be playing on Friday, as well as the Mavericks and the Clippers. So tomorrow will be the last day for round 1, and then we will do a preview of round 2 tomorrow as well. But we'll break down all the Game 6s here real quick. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net, leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message will pop up at the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. We appreciate anything that you do give. We appreciate you taking the time to watch this show, and we appreciate all the support that you've given us in the past and in the future. Like I was saying, though, we are going to be breaking down NBA Game 6s in this segment here. Like I said, the last day for round 2 will be tomorrow. So we're gonna save the breakdown for the last day for round 1 will be tomorrow. We're gonna save the breakdown for round 2 until tomorrow, when we have the best idea possible of who we expect to be in the next round. That is assuming that Game 6s are the end of it. We'll go with it as it happens. But we're gonna break down all the Game 6s here for you, and we'll start with the ones tonight. The most intriguing matchup has been the 76ers taking on the Heat. Oh my God, not the Heat. I apologize. The Knicks. The 76ers taking on the Knicks. It's been a interesting series. Heading into it, at least on paper, I expected the 76ers to go out and dominate in the paint, on the glass. That has not come out. The Knicks started out hot. They won the first 2 games. Joel Embiid comes back in Game 3 with a 50-point masterclass to win their first game and keep the Sixers in the series. Then they drop Game 4 at home, and Tyrese Maxey comes in 2 nights ago, plays hero ball, sends the game to overtime, and leads with the 76ers, sending them to a Game 6. And this Game 6 is going to be a lot of fun. The Sixers are going to win. They need Joel Embiid or Tyrese Maxey to step up, and they both kind of got a little bit shaken up in Game 5. I know Tyrese Maxey took a real tough fall on his hip, it looked like. He finished the game. Joel Embiid came up limping a little bit towards the end, but they both finished the game. I expect them both to be fine, but just keep an eye out for that when you're watching the game tonight, because that might affect them a little bit, depending on how bad the injuries actually were. But they need at least one of them to have a good game if they want to stay alive and send the series back to New York for a Game 7. There's an interesting tactic that Sixers ownership did. This game is back in Philly, so Sixers owners went out and bought a whole bunch of tickets. And it's an interesting tactic. It's something that we see happen quite more often than you'd think. There's always a story around it. It happens at least once a season in every sport with these big games, and it feels kind of weird to me. I was reading a story about this, preparing for the show today. I was reading a story about how the Sixers ownership bought a whole bunch of Game 6 tickets so that the Knicks fans couldn't show up and they wouldn't buy it. And it's one of those things that I don't necessarily think is wrong, but at the same time, there is something deep inside of me that says that's a little iffy. it's a little icky. Something about that just doesn't sit right with me, and I was trying to figure out exactly what it was. Home court advantage is a thing, right? And I don't want to overstate the importance of it, but if you have to manufacture home court advantage, especially in a city like Philly, with a basketball team that is pretty good, the Philly fans are known for showing up and being rowdy and having a really good environment a really good playoff environment, especially. The fact that they feel the need to buy tickets so that Knicks fans don't get it is a little concerning to me. The Knicks fan base is a great fan base, but when you are going into Philly, it feels like Philly should be able to control that crowd enough. And if they are that concerned about the Knicks fans overtaking the 76ers arena, this is a bigger issue than just this game. And I'm sure they're not. I'm sure they're just trying to pack the stadium with their fans, but it feels like it's more of a symptom, more of like a desperation move than anything. And it just doesn't sit right. We see teams do this all the time. I remember the Rams did this when they were playing the 49ers. And that was a really desperate move. It didn't sit right with a lot of people. I understand trying to win the game, right? And I understand it's important to do that. But, at the end of the day, it's entertainment. And if you're stopping people from seeing it, I know that if I was a fan that went to try and go buy tickets to this game, if I was a Knicks fan, and I find out they're all sold out, I'm like, ugh, that sucks. I understand, though, it's a playoff game in Philly. Later, I find out that the owner is the one that went and bought all these tickets just so I couldn't show up. It's one of those things that really kind of just gets under my skin a little bit. And yeah, go for it. Do your thing. Give yourself the advantage. I respect it completely. But putting yourself in the shoes of the consumer for a second there, as opposed to the owner, which I think we do that too often in sports media when we're talking contracts, when we're talking just about anything. We put ourselves in the position of the team and not the player or the fan or anything like that. And I think that's something that probably needs to change a little bit, but it's a little tangent. That's a whole nother thing. You have, all this raucous crowd, and it just, if I was that person that didn't get a ticket because Daryl Morey was like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna go and buy some seats that I'm not gonna use. I assume that he's giving them to Philly fans, and if he isn't doing that, then that's insane. But the story came out, and I don't know, it was one of those things that just kind of popped out to me. Had a little moment in my brain. I do think that at home, it's going to be a tight game. I don't know if the Sixers will be able to win this series, but I think they'll be able to take Game 6 and extend this series to 7 at Madison Square Garden, where this series was always supposed to go. But yeah, this should be a really fun game tonight. The other game tonight is going to be between the Bucks and the Pacers. And the Pacers and the Bucks, Dame is still questionable. All of their stars are questionable. We saw them come out and have a really hot shooting night and kind of just dominate in Game 5 the other day. They need to come out with that same energy. For the Pacers to win this game and get out of this series, they need to have a fast start. I think this game is going to be decided in the first quarter. If any team jumps out to a big lead in the first quarter, that team is going to win because there's a lot of momentum being carried over from Game 5. If the Bucks jump ahead early in this game, I don't think the Pacers are going to be able to recover. If the Pacers are able to jump ahead, their confidence is going to be there, and I think they're just the better team without the Bucks stars. So this game, I believe, should be decided pretty early on. Could be very wrong. These are both teams with incredible offenses and lackluster defenses, so anyone can go on a run at any time. So it's never a good idea to count either of these teams out. But looking at it, I think whoever jumps out to that first big lead especially if it's the Bucks, are going to win this game. I think the Pacers uh, are going to win this game just because the Bucks can't do this 2 nights in a row without their stars. Now, Dame is questionable, Giannis is questionable. They're both game time decisions. If they play, it's a completely different story. I'm going off the assumption that they're not playing, and if they aren't playing, Game 6 in Indiana, I don't think the Bucks are going to be able to feed off the environment and really get to the Pacers the same way they were able to get to the Pacers in Game 5. And the final Game 6, we just broke down a little bit of it actually in that first segment. But excuse me, the Cavs Magic Game 6 that's happening on Friday. Back in Orlando, Orlando has been dominant at home. They've blown them out in both games at home. Cleveland offense has an issue with disappearing. Even in the first 2 games when they were winning pretty handily, Cleveland's offense was still disappearing. They've disappeared for stretches in every single game of this series, aside from maybe game 2, but that's debatable. Their offense has just completely disappeared for moments, and back home when the Magic have been able to take advantage of that. I expect the Magic to tie this series, head it make it go 7. So maybe we'll have to push back our coverage of round 2 until Monday. But there's a lot going on in the NBA, in the NHL. It's playoff season. That's to be expected. But the Magic and the Cavs, I think the Magic will take Game 6. I think the Bucks will win the series in 6. And as much as I want to take the Sixers at home, I just think the Knicks are going to be able to pull ahead and take this one in 6. So I expect both of these series to be decided tonight. Anything can happen. That Knicks game is still going to be really good. So I'm very excited to watch that one. Let me know what you guys think of any of these games, any of these matchups. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. But yeah. Coming up in our next segment, we are going to move on to the gridiron. We're going to talk a little bit about the Steelers. There's been a lot of news about the Steelers today. We're going to talk about some of the head-scratching ideas that have been thrown out there, some fifth-year option news, roster moves with the Steelers. The Steelers have been in the headlines all over today, so we're going to talk about that coming up next on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.